you ever felt the sting of being unwelcome, hidden behind polite smiles and surface-level conversations? It's the silence between their words, the lack of warmth in their eyes, or the deliberate way they exclude you while pretending everything is fine. You feel it in your gut, a quiet ache that whispers, "You don't belong here." The pain of being subtly disliked is like an invisible wound, one that doesn't bleed but cuts just as deeply. It leaves you questioning yourself. What did I do wrong? Am I not good enough? But here's the truth. Their hidden animosity isn't about you. It's about them. Their insecurities, fears, and unresolved issues projected onto you. The Stoics understood this pain long before we gave it words. They taught us that while we cannot control the opinions or actions of others, we can master our response to them. They remind us that our worth is not defined by someone else's hidden judgments, but by the clarity and strength we bring to our own lives. In this video, we will reveal 12 subtle signs that someone dislikes you but hides it, and we'll delve into how Stoic philosophy can help you navigate these situations with grace and power. You'll learn how to protect your peace, reclaim your confidence, and refuse to let their hidden disdain dim your light. Stay with us until the end to uncover the tools to rise above this pain. Hit like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic, and leave a comment with the affirmation, "I choose strength and peace," to commit to a life unshaken by others' opinions. Your clarity begins here. Let's dive in. Number 1. Lack of interest in their words. One of the first signs that someone secretly dislikes you is the sheer indifference in their words, or lack thereof. They respond in short, clipped phrases, barely engaging in the conversation. When you share something exciting or meaningful, their reaction feels more obligatory than genuine, as if your words are just noise interrupting their day. Imagine this scenario. You bump into a colleague, Sarah, in the break room. Excitedly, you share, "I finally finished the project I've been working on for weeks." Sarah looks up briefly from her phone, mutters, "Oh, nice," and immediately redirects the conversation to her weekend plans. The message is clear. Your achievements don't interest her. Or picture a friend, Mark, who used to ask how your family was doing or remember your favorite coffee order. Now his responses to your updates are reduced to non-committal grunts like "cool" or "yeah, I guess." Worse, he never asks about your life anymore. Not because he's busy, but because he simply doesn't care to. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is in your power to preserve your mind in peace." The truth is, their disinterest has little to do with you and everything to do with their priorities, insecurities, or distractions. Yet, it's easy to internalize this behavior, questioning whether you're boring, unworthy, or even annoying. Here's where the Stoic insight shines. Their lack of engagement is not a reflection of your worth. As Epictetus taught, what disturbs people is not events, but their judgments about events. The way they choose to interact or not interact is their burden, not yours. Consider Jane, a bright, hard-working individual who often shares her ideas during team meetings. Her manager, Tom, dismisses her comments with vague replies like, "Let's circle back to that," or simply moves on without acknowledging her contributions. Jane feels undervalued, but what she doesn't realize is that Tom's lack of interest stems from his own biases and inability to appreciate her perspective, not her capability or intelligence. The Stoics remind us to separate external behaviors from internal truths. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. If someone's indifference leaves you feeling small, pause and reflect. Are you allowing their apathy to dictate your self-esteem? Instead of seeking validation from those who won't give it, channel your energy into nurturing relationships with people who see your value. Protect your peace by recognizing that their disinterest is their problem, not your failure. Remember, your worth isn't measured by how much others care to engage with you. It's defined by the integrity, purpose, and passion you bring to the table, even when no one else is looking. Let their indifference roll off your back like rain, and keep shining regardless. Number 2. They constantly argue or contradict your ideas. Have you ever noticed someone who, no matter what you say, feels compelled to challenge it? Whether it's your favorite movie, your weekend plans, or even the weather, they somehow find a way to disagree. It's not about the topic, it's about the subtle power play of undermining your voice. Imagine you're discussing something as mundane as the weather. You casually say, "It's been so hot lately, hasn't it?" Instead of a simple agreement, they retort, "I don't think it's that bad. Last summer was worse." Their response isn't about the heat, it's about proving you wrong, no matter how trivial the point. Or consider Sarah, who's brainstorming ideas in a work meeting. Every time she suggests something, her colleague Mike jumps in with, "Actually, I don't think that will work," or "That's not the best approach." Mike rarely offers alternatives. His goal isn't to contribute, but to discredit. This behavior can leave you questioning yourself. Am I always wrong? Why do they always seem to oppose me? But the Stoics teach us a vital truth. Their need to argue is not a reflection of their ideas, but of their insecurities. Epictetus said, "If someone criticizes you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's false, don't let it trouble you." People who constantly contradict you are often seeking control. By challenging your opinions, they subtly elevate their own. They might feel threatened by your confidence or ideas and use disagreement as a way to assert dominance. But this isn't about truth, it's about their fragile ego. Think of John, who always has to win in conversations. If you say you enjoyed a book, he'll criticize the author. If you share a personal story, he'll counter with one better or more dramatic. John's incessant need to argue stems from his insecurity. He's less interested in connection and more focused on validation. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You always have the option of having no opinion." When faced with relentless opposition, you don't have to engage. Choose to step back and protect your peace instead of being drawn into pointless debates. For example, Sarah might calmly say to Mike, "Thank you for your input. Let's hear what others think." This response disarms his need to control the conversation without fueling the argument. The Stoics teach us that trying to please everyone or win every debate is futile. Instead, focus on the conversations that matter and the people who respect your voice. Let their need to argue be their burden, not yours. Remember, someone's constant contradiction isn't a sign of your weakness, but of their discomfort with your strength. Stay grounded, speak with purpose, and don't let their noise silence your clarity. Number 3. Backhanded compliments and subtle digs. The art of the backhanded compliment, a weapon wielded by those too cowardly to insult you outright, but too petty to simply celebrate your success. These compliments are wrapped in false niceties, their sharp edges designed to cut you down while keeping your own hands clean. It's a performance as old as time, where the goal is not to uplift, but to undermine. Imagine you've just been promoted at work. At the celebratory lunch, your colleague Susan smiles and says, "Wow, I didn't think they'd choose someone so young for this role. Good for you." Or picture attending a reunion, where an old friend marvels at your fitness journey with, "It's amazing how you've managed to lose so much weight." Finally, these aren't compliments, they're polished daggers. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." The Stoics teach us to focus on our virtues and actions rather than getting entangled in the tangled webs of others' insecurities. Their backhanded compliments say far more about their need for validation than about your worth. The truth behind these remarks? They're often rooted in envy or discomfort. People like Susan want to acknowledge your success but can't resist taking you down a peg, as though your shine somehow dims their own. They mask their jealousy with thinly veiled jabs, hoping you'll feel as small as they do. Consider Jim, a man intimidated by his partner's success. When she shares an exciting project she's leading, he smirks and says, "That sounds like a lot of responsibility. Hope it doesn't overwhelm you." Jim isn't cheering her on. He's quietly chipping away at her confidence, projecting his insecurities onto her accomplishments. Seneca reminds us, "What progress have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself." Recognizing a backhanded compliment for what it is, a reflection of their inadequacies, allows you to shrug it off with stoic grace. You don't need their validation, and you certainly don't need to internalize their snide remarks. When faced with such digs, respond with calm confidence. If Susan comments on your promotion, simply smile and say, "Yes, I worked hard for this, and I'm excited about the opportunity." Your composure robs their words of their sting, leaving their pettiness hanging awkwardly in the air. Remember, their barbed words don't diminish your success. they highlight their inability to celebrate it. As Marcus Aurelius urged, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Keep your thoughts clear, your focus forward, and let their backhanded compliments remain the weak jabs they are, ineffective against your strength. Number 4. Always ready to criticize or undermine you. Some people thrive on tearing others down. They criticize you at every turn, often without cause or context. Their remarks are sharp, their tone dismissive, and their intent is clear: to make you feel small. It's not constructive criticism. It's a calculated effort to chip away at your confidence. Imagine sharing an idea during a team meeting, only for someone to interject with, "That'll never work," before you've even finished explaining. Or picture a so-called friend who, when you share an accomplishment, responds with, "Well, anyone could have done that." Their goal isn't to contribute or uplift. It's to undermine. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Their criticisms might sting in the moment, but they are a reflection of their insecurities, not your abilities. Their need to tear you down stems from their inability to lift themselves. Consider Jake, a coworker who constantly nitpicks at Sarah's work. If her presentation is thorough, he points out the one minor detail she missed. If she leads a successful project, he questions why it took so long. Jake's criticism isn't about Sarah's performance. It's about his need to feel superior by diminishing her success. Or take Emma, who frequently criticizes her partner John about small things: his cooking, his choice of movies, even how he folds laundry. Emma's constant need to find faults reveals more about her dissatisfaction with herself than with John. Seneca reminds us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Those who criticize excessively are often driven by a sense of lack, of confidence, achievement, or fulfillment. Their barbs are less about you and more about their unspoken struggles. The Stoics teach us to respond to criticism with clarity and composure. Instead of reacting defensively, recognize their words for what they are: noise. If the criticism is valid, address it constructively. If it's baseless, let it roll off your back. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Let them judge you. Their words cannot harm you unless you let them." For instance, Sarah might respond to Jake's nitpicking with, "I appreciate your feedback, but I'm confident in my approach." This asserts her competence without feeding into his negativity. Ultimately, their constant criticism cannot diminish your value unless you allow it. Focus on the opinions of those who offer genuine support and guidance, and let the rest fade into irrelevance. Remember, as Epictetus wisely observed, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Their attempts to undermine you are a reflection of their battles, not their worth. Stay strong, stay grounded, and rise above their petty need to criticize. Number 5. Showing clear favoritism. Few things sting quite like favoritism. When someone in a position of influence or authority blatantly favors others while sidelining you, it's more than just unfair. It feels personal. Their behavior sends a clear message: you're not valued as much as others, and they're not even trying to hide it. Imagine you're part of a team, and during every project, your manager always praises one specific colleague, Matt, while barely acknowledging your contributions. Even when your work is exceptional, it's overlooked, and their support always seems reserved for someone else. Or consider a social group where a friend consistently prioritizes another person's needs over yours, leaving you feeling invisible. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Favoritism reflects the inner biases and values of the person showing it. It's their issue, not yours. Their preference for others often has little to do with their abilities or worth, and everything to do with their perspectives, insecurities, or hidden agendas. Favoritism can stem from various motives. Perhaps they see themselves in the person they favor, or they perceive that individual as more beneficial to their own goals. For instance, a manager might favor Matt because he flatters them or aligns with their interests. This isn't a reflection of Matt's talent or your lack thereof. It's a mirror of the manager's priorities and biases. Consider Laura, a teacher who consistently calls on one student while ignoring others. It's not that the other students lack potential. Laura simply gravitates toward the student who reinforces her teaching style. Meanwhile, the overlooked students begin to doubt themselves, even though their skills have nothing to do with Laura's preferences. Seneca wisely noted, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When faced with favoritism, it's easy to spiral into self-doubt. But the Stoics teach us to separate what we can control, our actions and mindset, from what we cannot, the preferences of others. If favoritism affects your work or relationships, address it calmly and professionally. For example, you might say to your manager, "I'd like to discuss how I can contribute more effectively and ensure my efforts align with the team's goals." This shifts the focus to your strengths without directly challenging your bias. But if their favoritism persists, the Stoics remind us to focus on our growth rather than their behavior. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Favoritism, though hurtful, reveals more about their limitations than your abilities. By staying true to your values, building your skills, and maintaining your integrity, you rise above their biases. Let their favoritism be their flaw, not your burden. Embrace the relationships and opportunities that recognize your worth, and let the rest fade into the background. Number 6, avoiding personal topics. A subtle yet telling sign that someone dislikes you is their avoidance of personal topics. They steer clear of sharing their own experiences or engaging in meaningful conversations about your life. Instead, they keep the interaction superficial, as though any deeper connection is something they'd rather avoid. Imagine sitting with a colleague, Jake, during a lunch break. When you ask about his weekend, he responds with a curt, "It was fine," offering no details or interest in continuing the conversation. When you mention something personal, like a family event or an upcoming trip, he changes the subject to something impersonal, like the weather or work deadlines. The message is clear. He's uninterested in connecting on a deeper level. Or consider Sarah, a friend who used to confide in you about her challenges and dreams. Now she avoids personal conversations altogether, sticking to surface-level topics like movies or gossip. When you bring up anything heartfelt, she brushes it aside or redirects the conversation, leaving you feeling dismissed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "People exist for the sake of one another. Teach them or endure them." However, when someone consistently avoids personal topics, it's a sign that they either don't value the relationship enough to nurture it or feel uncomfortable with the vulnerability required for a deeper connection. This behavior often stems from their limitations rather than a reflection of their worth. Perhaps Jake fears intimacy because he's been hurt in the past, or Sarah feels jealous of your achievements and avoids personal conversations to protect her ego. Whatever the reason, their avoidance is not your fault. It's their way of managing their discomfort. The Stoics teach us to approach such situations with clarity and self-awareness. Epictetus said, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." If someone avoids personal topics with you, resist the urge to force a connection. Instead, focus on relationships that naturally offer mutual respect, empathy, and depth. For instance, if Jake consistently avoids engaging, redirect your energy toward colleagues who genuinely care about your input. Similarly, if Sarah no longer reciprocates vulnerability, invest in friendships where sharing is met with understanding, not avoidance. It's also important to accept that not every relationship is meant to be deeply personal. As Seneca observed, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Shallow relationships, while occasionally necessary, don't need to take up much of your time or emotional energy. Ultimately, the Stoics remind us that meaningful connections come from balance and mutual effort. Let those who avoid personal topics remain in the periphery of your life, and focus on nurturing relationships where openness and empathy thrive. By doing so, you preserve your peace and foster connections that truly matter. Number 7, deliberately excluding you from conversations or group activities. Few things cut deeper than the sting of exclusion. When someone intentionally leaves you out of group conversations or activities, the message is undeniable. You're not welcome. Whether it's a forgotten invitation or your ideas being ignored in a meeting, their deliberate actions can leave you feeling invisible and undervalued. Imagine being in a team meeting where you share a suggestion that's met with awkward silence. Moments later, another colleague says something similar, and it's met with enthusiastic approval. Or picture scrolling through social media and seeing a group of friends you usually hang out with enjoying an outing, one you were conveniently forgotten to be invited to. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, not everything is meant for you, and that's okay. The Stoics teach us to accept that exclusion is often more about others' insecurities, biases, or preferences than a reflection of your worth. Their choice to exclude you says more about them than it does about you. Exclusion often stems from fear or discomfort. Perhaps they feel intimidated by your competence and believe sidelining you protects their status. Or maybe they're projecting their insecurities, thinking you won't fit in, because of their inability to connect authentically. Take Lisa, a team leader who avoids assigning challenging tasks to Jake, even though he's proven himself capable. Instead, she favors another colleague who aligns more closely with her style, leaving Jake feeling overlooked. Lisa's exclusion isn't about Jake's abilities, it's about her preference for comfort over collaboration. Or consider Emma, a member of a social circle who deliberately avoids inviting her friend Anna to gatherings. Emma fears Anna's confidence will outshine her own, so she excludes Anna to maintain her fragile sense of control. The Stoics remind us that our peace lies in focusing on what we can control, our actions and reactions, not on the choices of others. Epictetus said, "Remember, it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Their exclusion might hurt, but it doesn't diminish your value unless you let it. When faced with exclusion, respond with clarity and dignity. If it's a recurring issue in a professional setting, calmly address it. "I noticed my contributions in meetings haven't been acknowledged. Is there a way I can better align with the team's goals?" This positions you as proactive rather than reactive. In social contexts, recognize exclusion as an opportunity to prioritize relationships where you are valued. As Seneca wisely observed, associate with those who make you a better person. Surround yourself with people who uplift and include you, rather than wasting energy on those who don't. Ultimately, the Stoics teach us that exclusion, though painful, is a reminder to focus on spaces and connections that truly value your presence. Let their choice to exclude you reflect their limitations, not yours, and use it as fuel to invest in the people and opportunities that celebrate, not sideline, your worth. Number 8. Demonstrating poor cooperation when working with you. In a collaborative environment, teamwork should be about mutual effort and shared success. But when someone goes out of their way to withhold support or even sabotage progress, it becomes clear that their cooperation is anything but genuine. Their actions, whether subtle or overt, are designed to hinder, not help, turning what should be a partnership into a power struggle. Imagine working on a group project with a colleague, Dan, who consistently misses deadlines, refuses to share crucial information, or leaves you to pick up his slack. It's not because he's overwhelmed. It's deliberate. Or consider Sarah, who, during brainstorming sessions, dismisses every idea you bring to the table without offering any constructive input. Instead of contributing, she seems more intent on undermining your efforts. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Do what is right, not what is easy, nor what is popular." When faced with poor cooperation, the Stoics teach us to stay focused on the task at hand, rather than getting entangled in others' unprofessional behavior. Their lack of support doesn't diminish your value, it highlights their lack of commitment to the bigger picture. Poor cooperation often stems from underlying insecurities or resentments. Perhaps Dan resents that you've been recognized for your work before, and his passive resistance is his way of asserting control. Or Sarah might feel threatened by your ideas and undermine them to maintain her sense of superiority. Consider Mark, a junior employee assigned to assist Lisa on a high-stakes project. Mark, feeling overlooked for a promotion, drags his feet on tasks, delays responses, and subtly critiques Lisa's decisions in meetings. His lack of cooperation isn't about the project, it's about his dissatisfaction with his role. The Stoics remind us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our professionalism, and our mindset. Epictetus taught, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Instead of getting frustrated by their behavior, redirect your energy to ensuring the work gets done and maintaining your standards of excellence. If poor cooperation affects the project's progress, address it constructively. For instance, you could say to Dan, I've noticed some delays in your part of the project. Is there anything you need support with to stay on track? This approach keeps the focus on the work and subtly calls out their behavior without escalating tension. However, the Stoics also teach us to accept that not everyone will meet our standards of collaboration. As Seneca observed, associate with those who make you a better person. While you may need to work with difficult colleagues, you can choose to limit how much their actions affect your peace and productivity. Ultimately, poor cooperation is a reflection of their priorities, not their worth. By maintaining professionalism, focusing on results, and refusing to be dragged into their negativity, you rise above their behavior. Let their lack of effort be their burden, while you continue to excel with clarity, purpose, and integrity. Number 9, they're only kind when others are watching. Kindness is supposed to be genuine, consistent, and reflective of one's character. But some people weaponize it, turning it into a performance for an audience. In public, they're all smiles, politeness, and support. But the moment the spotlight fades, so does their courtesy. Their true colors, dismissiveness, indifference, or even hostility, emerge when no one else is around. Imagine a coworker, Alex, who praises your ideas during team meetings, saying things like, "I couldn't have done it without them." But in private, when you ask for their input or support, they brush you off with a curt, "Figure it out yourself." Or think of Rachel, a friend who's warm and engaging at group gatherings, but cold and uninterested when it's just the two of you. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The Stoics remind us that sincerity, not performative behavior, defines true character. Someone who only acts kindly in the presence of others is revealing their lack of integrity, not reflecting their value. Why do they act this way? Their public kindness often stems from a desire to maintain a good image. They care more about how others perceive them than about genuinely connecting with you. In their mind, appearing considerate in front of others shields them from criticism, while their private behavior reveals their true indifference, or worse. Consider Sarah, a manager who praises her team in front of upper management, but micromanages and undermines them behind closed doors. Her public persona is one of encouragement, but her private actions sow frustration and resentment. Or think of Mike, who enthusiastically introduces you as a close friend at a party, but later ignores your calls and texts. Seneca observed, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." When faced with someone who's only kind when others are around, resist the urge to confront them emotionally. Instead, observe their actions quietly and adjust your expectations accordingly. If their behavior affects you significantly, address it calmly. "I appreciate your support in meetings, but I feel there's a disconnect when we work together one-on-one. Is there something we need to address?" This approach highlights the discrepancy without escalating the situation. However, the Stoics also teach us to prioritize relationships built on authenticity. Epictetus reminds us, associate with those who make you better. Let their performative kindness serve as a reminder of what you deserve. Relationships rooted in sincerity and mutual respect. Their superficiality doesn't diminish your worth. By focusing on genuine connections and refusing to be swayed by hollow acts, you protect your peace and align with those who truly value you. Let their duplicity remain their burden, not yours. Number 10, they compare you to others in a negative light. The timeless art of comparison. It's the favorite weapon of those who want to undermine you without the effort of originality. Instead of engaging with your unique qualities, they drag out the most unflattering yardstick they can find, usually someone else's successes, and measure you against it. The goal? To make you feel smaller, less capable, and less worthy. Picture this. You share an idea, and instead of acknowledgement, they smirk and say, "Well, that's fine, but you know who's great at this? Jessica." Or, you show up feeling good about yourself, only to hear, "You look nice, but have you seen how Alex always puts his outfits together?" It's not just a comment. It's a calculated dig disguised as casual observation. The Stoics had a simple, cutting truth for this. Comparison is the thief of joy. When someone chooses to compare you negatively to others, they're not offering constructive feedback. They're projecting their insecurities onto you. Epictetus reminds us, a man can't learn what he thinks he already knows. They're too busy elevating someone else or themselves to see your worth. What makes this behavior so insidious is its subtlety. It's not outright criticism, but a whispered implication: you're not enough. But here's the punchline they don't expect. You don't have to play their game. The truth is, their comparisons say more about their inability to appreciate individuality than about your so-called shortcomings. They live in a world where self-worth is a zero-sum game, where for someone to shine, another must dim. You, on the other hand, can choose to reject this scarcity mindset and focus on your growth. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The next time someone says, well, you're good, but so-and-so is better, let it roll off your back like water off a duck's feathers. Respond with a simple smile and move on. Your worth isn't up for debate. In the end, their habit of comparison is their burden to bear, not yours. If they can't see your value, that's their limitation, not your flaw. As Seneca said, associate with those who help you become the best version of yourself. Let their comparisons fade into the background noise of irrelevant opinions while you continue to grow, thrive, and live authentically. After all, the only person you need to be better than is who you were yesterday, and no one else gets a say in that. Number 11. They deliberately embarrass you in front of others. There's a particular cruelty in someone who takes pleasure in making you feel small in public. These people use sharp remarks or calculated actions to humiliate you, turning shared moments into opportunities to assert their superiority. It's not just hurtful, it's a power play disguised as humor or honesty. Picture this. You're in a group of friends, sharing a story you're excited about. Midway through, someone cuts in with, "You've told this one before, remember? And it wasn't that funny then either." Laughter ripples through the group, but it's not with you, it's at you. Or during a work presentation, a colleague interjects with, "Are you sure that's accurate? It doesn't sound right," undermining your credibility in front of everyone. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't need anyone's approval to live according to your values." Their attempts to embarrass you reveal more about their need for control and validation than anything about your worth. Public humiliation is a weak person's tool, a reflection of their insecurities masked as confidence. Why do they do it? Often, their behavior stems from jealousy or fear. Your presence, ideas, or achievements may feel threatening to them, so they strike where it hurts most, your dignity. By embarrassing you, they momentarily feel stronger, smarter, or more important. But here's the truth, they don't want you to know. Their attempts to bring you down only highlight your strengths. As Epictetus wisely said, when someone criticizes you unfairly, they're not defining you, they're defining themselves. When faced with this kind of behavior, the Stoics teach us to stay calm and composed. Reacting emotionally only feeds their agenda. Instead, respond with grace. If someone makes a snide comment, a simple, "I didn't realize this was a comedy set," can disarm them without stooping to their level. If the situation calls for it, address the behavior directly but assertively. For example, you might say, "I'd appreciate it if we kept the discussion respectful. Let's focus on the topic." This signals that you see through their tactics and won't tolerate disrespect. Most importantly, remember that their words don't define you. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Don't let their pettiness occupy space in your mind. Instead of dwelling on their actions, focus on those who uplift and respect them. Their attempts to embarrass you are fleeting, but your dignity and self-respect are enduring. Let their need to humiliate remain their burden, while you rise above with poise and strength. After all, your value isn't determined by their small-minded games. It's rooted in the unshakable confidence of knowing who you are. Number 12. They rarely acknowledge your contributions. Among friends, mutual recognition is the unspoken glue that binds relationships. But when someone consistently overlooks your efforts or accomplishments, it feels less like a blind spot and more like a deliberate dismissal. Their silence isn't just deafening, it's telling. Imagine this. You've organized an incredible dinner for your friend group, carefully planning the menu, setting the mood, and ensuring everyone has a great time. The evening is a success, and everyone compliments the ambiance, the food, the vibe. But all their thanks go to Amanda, the friend who brought a bottle of wine. Your efforts? Barely a nod. This isn't an accident. It's a pattern. Every time you achieve something, their acknowledgement either doesn't come or arrives diluted, as if recognizing your success costs them something. Marcus Aurelius offers a remedy to this painful reality. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. Their refusal to give you credit often stems from envy or insecurity. Perhaps they see your success as a mirror reflecting their lack of effort, so they choose to downplay your accomplishments to preserve their fragile ego. Or maybe they're afraid that praising you will shift the group's attention away from them. The Stoics teach us to let go of the need for external validation. Epictetus said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, and then your life will flow well." If their acknowledgement doesn't come, acknowledge yourself. Your efforts and achievements are not diminished by their silence. When faced with this behavior, resist the urge to demand recognition. It rarely ends well. Instead, focus on those in the group who genuinely value and support you. Perhaps another friend says, "The dinner was amazing. Thank you for organizing it." Let that genuine praise fill the gap left by the others. If their consistent lack of acknowledgement affects your relationship, address it calmly. You might say, "I noticed my contributions often go unmentioned. I want to be clear about how much I value our friendship, but I also need it to feel reciprocal." This shifts the focus to the dynamic without sounding accusatory. Ultimately, the Stoics remind us that the only validation that truly matters comes from within. Your worth isn't tied to whether someone gives you credit. It's tied to the effort, care, and integrity you bring to your actions. Let their refusal to acknowledge you be a reflection of their limitations, not your value. As Seneca wisely said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." And part of that learning is understanding that your contributions don't need their recognition to matter. You already know your worth, and that's enough. Conclusion. Realizing that someone doesn't like you isn't a defeat. It's an opportunity. It allows you to redirect your energy toward relationships that truly matter and focus on nurturing connections that uplift and empower you. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, you can maintain your peace, protect your worth, and rise above the negativity of others. Apply these timeless Stoic principles to stay calm, grounded, and focused on your inner strength. Don't let the opinions or actions of others dictate your happiness. Your value is inherent and unshakable. If you found this video helpful, please hit like, share, and subscribe to the Victory Stoic channel to spread these empowering lessons. Leave a comment below with the affirmation, "I choose peace and my value," to declare your commitment to living a positive and purposeful life. Thank you for being here. Remember, your journey toward tranquility and self-worth begins with you. Stay strong, stay mindful, and we'll see you in the next video.